Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. If you are watching on YouTube, you might see a little link below, and if you click on that, you can actually join the conversation. If you're an attendee and you're looking at all of these, we're going to be talking about all kinds of media production, and we're going to talk about Zoom and lots of other cool things, streaming, automation. All these things are going to happen today. And you may think that you know more than us, and you might. And if you're in the attendees and you think you know more than us or think that you can contribute to this conversation, we want you to join. You can see this fine collection of experts, but you could be one of those. So definitely, all you need to do is have good internet, good video, good audio, and raise your digital Zoom hand to join. If we open the doors at 6. And if you want to come in at 6 o'clock, you can. You don't have to. 6:40 is when we start doing the mic checks. When we do those mic checks, once we do that, we're going to close the panel up. So you have to be here by 6:40 to join the panel, but we would love to have you do that. Otherwise, start asking questions. More than any other show that you're ever going to see, or at least right now, this show is driven by the audience. So if you're an attendee, you are the producer. The questions that you ask and the questions that you vote on drive the run of show, drive what we talk about. So ask those questions, get up there and ask questions, vote on the questions that you're most interested in. Today, if you have questions for the second hour, just put QLab. That's going to be the code for us to know not to ask it until the second hour. First hour is all basically general discussion, while the second hour is a more vertical discussion. So typically we have Monday is kind of a wild card day. Tuesday is audio. Wednesday is video. Thursday is generally artist or artist related. And then Friday, we're going to kind of go into events. So it was education, but we're going to be talking about events, whether it's encoding or captions. In this case, we're going to be talking about what happens right before the show. This Friday, but that's going to be kind of a new segment for us. And then education on Saturday. So that's that's kind of where we're going, and we will send you a email every morning telling you what's going to happen. And once a week, we've turned it on. We've turned it back on for the updates. So anyway, it should be a very good week. We've got a lot of great stuff to talk about. And if you are interested in sharing this, don't share your own link. So I'll put this into the chat. Share that link. Otherwise, everyone will come in as you. It'll be kind of a Stepford Wives issue, and we'd like to avoid that. So anyway, without further ado, Chris, are you ready to ask questions?
Yeah, sure. How you doing? Did you have a good weekend?
Yeah, a lot of work, as always. So
right, Mr. Francis. Actually, before I read the question, is there anything else you want to say?
There's nothing else I want to say.
Okay. Mr. Francis says, has anyone streamed directly from the ATEM Mini Pro to Vimeo premium plan? Any advice or things to watch for?
Hey, what do you know? We are streaming right now, live to Vimeo. So here's a touch director. You can see it's live stream 4.4 megabits per second. And if I jump over here and hit play, that is 720. So I'm sending 1920 by 1080, and it's actually coming out as 720, but we're live.
Does Vimeo do 1080 live?
That's what I'm not seeing it. That's a crazy thing. And this is an enterprise account, so this is like the highest level you can go. But yeah,
for some reason I thought the Vimeo was limited to 720, but I'm not 100% sure.
That's what I'm seeing right now. And even though in Touch Director it's showing that I'm sending up 1920 by 1080, and I tried it with Restream.io too.
Yeah, it may be limited to 720. Lawrence, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I think it does 1080, but it can take a few seconds, like up to 20 seconds, I think, to kick in.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Jason?
I'm pretty sure that it does do 1080. I think maybe your monitor or your live studio might be limited to 720. I've used it before, and I mean, just to get back to the question, like regardless of 1080 or 720, bitrate is champion. Like at the end of the day, bitrate over frame rate, and I would stick to 30 FPS. Other than that, H.264 is pretty good coming out of the ATEM Mini Pro.
The math I try to do generally, this is very rough math, but if you're asking me, like when someone asks like how much bandwidth should I have, I generally say it should be 3x the size of the frame. So if you have a 2 meg frame, like a 1920 by 1080 is a 2 meg frame, I want to have 6 megs, for my 1080 frame, 12, so as you do that math, I try to get 3x out of it as kind of my minimum you know, to do that. That's my quick math of pixels per bit. Go ahead, Beju.
Yeah, I was just going to say that we have done 1080 with Vimeo in the past, but we were using the studio software. So whether that could be a limitation of that as well. And the studio software could also take a 4K signal to pass it on to YouTube if you want, and just could go 1080 to Vimeo as well. So it just could be how you're sending it. I don't know whether Draw RTMP does it or not. That's something we have to check. Probably need to check.
Good, Grant.
Yeah, so I did exactly this last week. So on an ATEM Mini Pro ISO, I copied the settings for YouTube, which is a 1080 at 6 meg. Copied that and sent it to Vimeo. I had a true 1080 at 6 meg. I ran it for 2 days straight, 2-day conference running off of the ATEM Mini, and it was flawless. Worked great.
I just bumped it to 6 megabit and restarted the stream, and now I'm getting 1080.
Huh.
Out
So
of
maybe
ATEM Mini Pro.
it was
This is
making the
Mini
decision.
Pro ISO.
I wonder if it's making a decision based on the bit rate.
Yeah, it obviously
Interesting.
was. Yeah, when I raised it from the 4.5 to 6, it jumped to 1080.
Interesting. That's a really good tip to know. Go ahead, Sky, and then Jeff. Oh no, okay, Jeff.
So Guy, are you just dropping in the stream key and you're going directly Ethernet out of the ISO directly up to Vimeo? No computer interface involved.
I'm using the iPad to be able to use Touch Director to talk to the ISO, so I can quickly enter in the URL. So this is the interface, and it's pretty quick just to create a new one. There you go. You guys can see my stream key. Go ahead, nuke it.
Go ahead, Stuart.
Guy, you just said 4.5. What's the actual number for the math? Because aren't we supposed to use multiples of 2 for those sorts of things?
I don't know if you can see it on the screen, but these are the default settings right here: 3, 4.5, and 6 in Touch Director. I think that those are the pop-ups actually from the Blackmagic presets.
Yeah, you can set those to anything that you want. You just have to go in and edit the stream file.
Yeah, go in and mess with the XML.
I just know that there's some software encoders that prefer to stick to that multiples of 2 rule.
Yeah, I remember the reason why I dropped it down to 4.5 was because it was overheating on my first test, but that was when the thing first came out. And so now I need to do an hour-long or 2-hour test and see what it does at 6 megabit now that we're on software 4.5 or 8.5. So
yeah, we definitely, I mean, you know, obviously GOP size and other things are things that work in certain increments that work better. For bit rate, at least on the stuff that we use, it doesn't, we make it whatever increment we want. It doesn't really matter. It might matter with some software streamers, but with, like, for instance, elementals and other things that we use, it just, we package all of that in, because the video might be, like, if someone says we want to be under 6 megs, we might make the video 5.75 and then leave enough headroom for the audio, or, you know, that type of thing, if there's some kind of hard limit. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, keep in mind, I mean, especially with the ATEM Mini Pro, that encoding rate is an average. It's a moving suggestion of an average. So, you know, the reason when Guy switches to that stagnant screen that you see it drop is because there's very little going on that iPad screen grab. I mean, so you can be going up at 6, but the encoder is going to make use of less than that when you have an extremely simple image.
Yep. Next question.
All right. Next question comes from TJ. Hey, TJ. Alex, did you have a chance to test the 2 iPhone into ATEM Mini with missing sound issue from yesterday? I did a test with one phone yesterday and was able to get sound as long as sound channel was enabled on ATEM, and the option to output sound over HDMI was enabled in Filmic Pro. I see no reason 2 phones would not work also.
I agree with you. I haven't had time to test it, but I'll test it. I'll try to test it sometime this week. But I don't see any reason why there'd be any issue, especially if you're getting audio through HDMI out from one phone. Should work. TJ, are you doing audio follows video on that, or it doesn't really matter? But anyway, so let us know. All right. Next question. For some reason, I thought
Ernie-
TJ was in the group, and there's a big group here. And I think in my back of my head, TJ is usually here. I was like, where is he? I don't see him. All right, I threw the ball. I threw the ball. There was a missed route. I threw the ball, and the receiver wasn't even on the field. So anyway,
Basic ball handling skills. Alex.
Yep,
Basic.
yep.
Ernie from New York City says, what are the differences between Zoom Room, this is a good one, and meetings when being used point to point? Is there an advantage to using a Zoom conference equipment?
we don't use the conference equipment. We use we have little Samsung, tablets that we use to run each room that we use. And one of the advantages of it is that we don't have to pin anything. So when people pop in, they just pop right up into the place that they need to be at. Zoom rooms allow us there's a interface that lets us control what every screen is going to get, as far as, it's going to have this and this and this, there's arrays that you can kind of set within a Zoom room that for what we do on a point to point are advantageous. So I think that's the big advantage for us, was that we started with a business account to get the higher resolution with meetings, but we had to pin to the screen that we wanted to. And the pin was errantly dropping out every once in a while. So that it was unpinning for a reason that we don't know why, but it was unpinning every once in a while. And so we immediately switched to rooms. So we were like, that was a behavior that we definitely didn't want to have happen. So that was our reasoning for moving to rooms. Any other? Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Does each one of those rooms cost you $500 a year?
$40 a month.
I'm doing some math in my head, realizing.
Yeah, $40 a month. Well, I mean, everything's relative to the budget of the project. So we don't necessarily need to keep all those too. If we slow down and we don't have a ton of work, we, like this fall, we might turn half of them off, or, we're not paying the annual, we're paying per month. So that we can expand and contract. And right now the budget supports, ongoingly, the budget is supported at least through November, that we can keep all of those running and they're all paid for. So it's just every cost is relative to the revenue connected to it. So
of course.
Next question.
Mr. Mobley from Newman, Georgia says, I'm having an issue of sound going from ATEM Mini in Zoom meetings. Sound is extremely low for those in the meeting. Any suggestions? Do I need a sound device?
Go ahead, Bill.
And to be clear, sound device is lowercase. I don't think he means a sound device.
No, it's not a sound device's device. So Tony, you have controls in the ATEM Mini audio tab on both output master and the gain coming in. So the first place you should look is just make sure that this is traditional level setting through an audio chain. So make sure that what's coming from your mic into the ATEM Mini is correct, and then check that what you're sending out of it is correct. And once you do that, then you would look at those other devices.
The other thing to make sure of is, as you're looking at if I think, Tony, you have one of the pile mics. When you ordered it, you want to make sure, you want to look closely at whether it has a Sennheiser mount on it. So a little screw mount here that shortens the length of the 3.5 millimeter connector. The Sennheiser connectors can cause your tip ring, your TRS, not to go all the way in, and then that would sound very low. So I had this problem with something else that but it's really, you're not getting what you're expecting out of it. So just make sure that it's going all the way in too as well. Jeff?
Make sure in Zoom that you do have the Blackmagic device selected as your audio input, and also make sure that you don't have the automatically adjust microphone volume checked. I wonder if that could be affecting things.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Next question.
Next question comes from Greg Gibson, Washington, D.C. Quite often, when pushing a virtual input NDI from vMix to Zoom, I see a Hulk screen. I don't know what that means. Where the picture is green. Toggling the camera on and off clears it up. I haven't seen it in production, but typically on first connect. Is this just some kind of NDA handshake issue? Does anyone know what causes it?
Go ahead, Stuart.
Do you want?
Yeah, I had it a couple of times about a month back that people might recall. It cleared up when I matched the NDI drivers on my vMix machine with the NDI drivers on my laptop and updated to, I think it was 5.1 Zoom, where they had done some stuff in the background and it seemed to go away since then. So I would suggest to Greg, update to the latest NDI drivers on all your systems and update to the latest Zoom.
Great.
Oh,
Yep.
and I'm also running 720/30 out, and I've told the virtual input on the laptop that it's 720/30 coming in, so that might help as well.
Yep. Next question.
Tony Sprague from Brunswick says, I'm looking to set up a patch panel with SDI, HDMI, and XLR connectors for a rack we use with one of our TriCasters. Oh boy. I don't have the skills to build this myself. Do you have a recommended vendor for creating these at a reasonable price level?
Well, I guess the question really is whether you need to, they're not hard to, it depends on what kind of patch you're doing. If you're doing true patches, those you buy as they are. If you're just doing pass-throughs, those are pretty simple to build. I mean, you get them as you get a patch with a bunch of holes, and then you put things in and screw them in, and that's pretty much it. But you can definitely buy them from third-party vendors as well. Go ahead, Chris, and then Grant, and then Stuart, and then Bill.
I have a vague memory of like MarkerTech having a set where you can put in the appropriate connector that you need for something.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
That's where I was going to go.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty straightforward. Grant, and then Stuart.
Do you know, often with a lot of this stuff, it's all about the keyword. And once you find the right keyword to search Google, it just opens up the whole world. And so there's two I would use. One is Keystone. So Keystone is the type of format that sits in those rack units. And so I built a TriCaster rack, exactly what you're doing. And Keystone, you can get these pass-throughs for HDMI, for RJ45 or network, for BNC, for USB. And so you can create like these custom little, and I do these single rack mount, single RU, and put all these keystones. So Keystone is the ticket.
Yep. Go ahead, Stuart.
Is Tony in Brunswick, US, Brunswick, Canada, or Brunswick in Melbourne? Because
it might be
the answer
Melbourne.
we
It's
give for
Brunswick ME.
Okay, so it's not an Australian answer. Otherwise, I would say ring me.
There you go. Yeah. John Edelson.
Yeah, except for the XLR, this is a little surface mount plate, but you could also, like Grant said, you could get it that mounts in a rack and then just have other cables. This is how I extend my my Mini and not have to keep plugging in and unplugging it.
Go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, I think the Keystone panels that Grant was mentioning is more prevalent in the IT industry, not so much in the media industry. For the media, what I see, what I more commonly see would be what they call the D as in dog, the D style connector. And those are the ones that go into the multimedia universal patch base that you would see in places like MarkerTech. So look for those D style connectors. And yeah, they also come in, XLRs. They're big enough to fit XLRs because I don't think Keystones can fit XLRs. They can fit BNC connectors. They can fit HDMI, whatever you need. But yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, Grant.
And this is, let's see if I can show this here. I mean, for a lot of the stuff we build when we want to have it custom, a lot of times I do all SDI and then all XLR and then all IP or whatever. So that's, then you just buy them pre-made. They're 16 across or whatever you want across those things. For the ones that are what we're kind of talking about here, or one option, if I screen share here real quick. I'm not necessarily saying this is the best one, but this is an example of it. If you look at, this is what I was talking about, which is that you just have these holes all cut out, and then you just order what you need here, and then just screw them in. But it's really, there's not much to it other than a screwdriver.
Yeah, those are the D style ones, the bigger ones.
Yeah. Now go ahead, Bill.
I know you said you were budget conscious about this, but MarkerTech does have a custom shop. So if you decide what you need and just ping them with that, they will send one to you. That's exactly what you need.
Yep. Mickey.
Yeah, and yeah, if depending on the size of the patch panels you have to build, try to look around for AV SI systems integrators around your area because they would know what to do.
Yep. Next question.
Matt Temkin from New York says, has anyone set up Izotope Insight 2 for doing mic levels? Does it work as well as WLM?
Go ahead, Mickey. And then Jason
Yeah,
and Jeff.
I haven't, but it should work the same. Luffs are luffs.
Jason and Jeff.
I mean, it should work the same, but Insight is designed, in my understanding, correct me, Mickey, if I'm wrong, but Insight is generally just a nice way to do mix tap for a multi-channel feed. I've never used it for live audio.
Jeff and Victor.
Yeah, Insight has about 5 different modules. One of them is a LUFS meter. Just from a user interface standpoint, the short term that we're using is a little smaller in that interface. So the WLM is actually easier to see, would be about the only thing. But as far as reading, I've run them next to, I've had Insight running on my machine. I've had Ulean running on my machine while doing mic checks here, and the numbers come up the same.
I will say Insight looks really cool. I think that's an important piece. Anyway.
Yeah, its other tools are fabulous. It's got spectrogram and correlation meters.
Yep, absolutely. Victor?
Yeah, you use Insight all the time for music. I think it's overkill if you're just simply trying to measure your LUFS for something like this. WLM is a much better value.
I will say that, we got Spectre a long time ago, years and years ago. We got Spectre, and it was literally the only reason I bought it was because I needed more eye candy for the clients to see
I miss
audio
Spectre.
go by. It's coming back. They
Yeah,
Synaptic got it. But I got it literally just for eye candy because I could just design this big screen that because when you're streaming and that's all you're doing, how do you show what you're doing? It was like one of those things like how do you show that you're working? You had to have I had a bunch of screens and a bunch of analyzation scopes and everything else. And what was funny was I put it all up to impress the clients and justify my existence. And within 3 or 4 jobs, I couldn't live without it because we just saw so much. Like once the stuff is up there, we suddenly could see all these things happening and we could see all the stuff. And then it became like a science, for us. We would do multi-rooms because the big thing is if you're streaming like 8 rooms or 10 rooms or 12 rooms, you can't listen to them all. You can't, or 20 rooms, you can't listen to them all. You need all those scopes because I can look across the room and tell that room 16 is low. Coming in because I can just see the meters, going across, or I can decide what to look at based on what I can see visually. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I totally agree. Even something as simple as the settings control in Zoom, I can't sit in a Zoom meeting without watching that. Also, is LUFS something that is is it an absolute scale or is it something that can be like calibrated? Do you have to calibrate your LUFS meter? Just curious.
Go ahead, Jeff.
No, it's an absolute scale. It's loudness units full scale. So it's compensated for human hearing. So it's designed to mimic how a person would hear loudness.
Yeah, it's K weighted if you want to be a nerd about it. But yeah, it's an absolute scale.
Next question.
All right, moving on. Tony Mobley once again says, anyone using 2C USB webcam, 4 mics in the webcam, best use case for 4 mics?
Go ahead, Guy, and then Jeff.
So I did a little test with Dan from Video 360, and he walked me through, this was just a couple days ago, 4 of the cameras, the 1C, the 2C, and some of the higher end ones. And I was expecting to be blown away by those mics in there, but they're not very good. Sorry to report, it's garbage. So they're built-in mics for spatial mics, and it sounded very roomy. I mean, it sounds kind of like the Portal. I don't know if you guys remember. So all these guys, it's get the mic closer to the subject. That's what it boils down to. When these guys say, yeah, it'll do 6 feet in a conference room, it just, you hear the room. That's just what happens. If it's an untreated room, then you're going to hear the room. It's going to be live. It's going to be echoey. So I can't say that you'd want to get that camera for those mics.
Yep. All right, go ahead, Jeff, and then Jason.
When they say they have 4 mics, those are not 4 mics that you as a user get a hold of and are able to configure. The camera's using the 4 mics to try to do beamforming, to try to prevent sound from the sides and get more sound out in front of the mic so it can get farther distance. That 6 feet they claim, but as Guy experienced, didn't work too well.
I've seen Shure has a tech that they use for some of these conference rooms that has a whole slew of mics, and I've seen that work relatively well, but it's really expensive.
Yeah.
Like it's
So
not something you get for $200. It's
Sennheiser and Shure both have them, and they work really well. Especially the Sennheiser one we tested in our conference room, and there's 28 mics in that thing, and it actually was totally picking up the person. You can hear it steering. That was like 2,500 bucks.
Yeah,
for that. And it's a ceiling tile. It's like an 18 by 18, and it can
each
do.
one.
Excuse me.
Wait, how much are they? How much are they?
About
how much were they? Again? Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
The ones I saw were they're multi-point around, and I think it was 20 grand. It sounded great though, Jason.
Yeah, the one I saw was somewhere between 20 and 30, and I don't remember if it was Shure or Sennheiser. As far as multi-point, but on a single unit microphone audio to do beamforming, the only one that's ever really impressed me was the FDR AX53. There's a higher level one that also does, it has like a Zoom mic thing where it will actually cut the room out. But again, there is no substitute for mic closer to person.
Yep. Next question.
Alex, what was the metering software you said you were using? You mentioned it in the last answer.
Spectre.
Spectre, and Spectre is now owned. I don't think they've released it again, but Synaptic bought the code, I guess. Spectre was an incredible app that evidently the team that built it had a separation that made it complicated to update, and so finally, I guess Synaptic acquired it, which only this summer, I think. And but I like the way that it lays out and the amount of control I have. That's the big thing is that the one thing that I've asked, like I was testing Sonic Atom and I emailed them saying, this is what I need, and one of the big things is that in Spectre, there's a level history that will fill the bottom of the level history, and you can set colors based on your dB level. And what that means is we could set it to red when it was over -6. We could set it to purple when it was below, -12, and set it to green when it was between 12 and 6, which is what we were targeting for our shows. And then you just look across the room and if you see all green, you're good. If you see purple, you got to go look at it. If you see red, you got to go look at it. And so that one scope is why I would probably keep on coming back to Spectre, now that it's running again. And if someone added it, I would just move on to something else, a more modern solution. But without that scope, I can't do what I do. so anyway, so it's an important scope to me. Anyway, and it's not hard to add. I don't think it would be hard to add, but so far I haven't been able to persuade anybody that makes the meters to do it because it's really clear and I can see it from a distance. Anyway, next question.
Okay. This is going to be interesting, Alex, if you want to get into it. Gabriel Ong from Malaysia says, Alex, can you please walk us through your audio chain for panelists with each panelist comes in on a different machine? How do they hear each other while avoiding feedback? And could they hear questions from participants? Thanks. No, and a note, thinking of producing back to Zoom with a gallery of attendees.
So trying to make it, the person that really should talk about this is Brian Maddox, because he's the one that actually, sets it up, but I'll do the best I can. The basically what they're actually hearing. So everybody comes in as a single channel. We're using Dante virtual audio or whatever for the on every computer. So they're all on Dante. They all go into either a CL5 or a QL5. They are then served up as a mix minus to a ClearCom Eclipse, So the Clearcom Eclipse is connected to the QL1 or QL5 over. We have 2 eclipses and 2 sets of things, and so we have so the Clearcom. So that what's going back to the user is actually the Clearcom, and the reason we do that is because then we add all of our comms into that stream that goes back to them. So if you're an individual anywhere in the world, I don't need you to get on a phone to do talkback. I can literally just talk back to you through Zoom. But when I'm talking to you through Zoom, I know that it's not going to the program because the program is in the QL1 and the talkback is in the Clearcom, and you're listening to the Clearcom. And so that keeps all my communications with the users to be safe. The hardest part is getting them to trust it, because it just seems crazy to them that someone's talking through Zoom and they can talk back, and because we just we have them potted down, for the actual show. So that gives us the control. It's all mix minuses to each person. From a mix minus perspective, it's a fairly basic, process that they just hear everybody but themselves. If we're producing it back into Zoom, the Zoom is just another participant to us with a mix minus. So anybody in Zoom, in a Zoom webinar or meeting, could just talk to anybody that's there. So there's not, for the Zoom meeting or the Zoom webinar, it doesn't really feel any different than it would otherwise, except that everybody that they're getting, we can now produce the event. So because we have all those ISOs for video, they're in 4 boxes and 2 boxes and lower thirds and graphics and playback, and all that stuff happens into Zoom, because we're producing it the same way. And so us producing it into Zoom or producing it to YouTube or producing it to TV, putting it on a press pool doesn't mean anything to us. Like it just, like we produce it the same way, and it's just an output. The only difference is in Zoom you can talk back. People can talk to them and open up a call, and then we have SIP lines for callers. So if someone wants to call in, we've got an LQ box that's tied in that people can just call, and they can call a number, and then they can be in if they want to ask questions that way as well. Go ahead, Grant. And by the way, with Agent IC, any producer watching, we have a producer Zoom too. The producers are all sitting there watching, and they can talk to the guests as well before the show or during the show. But they can also use Agent IC to, if they want to only talk to a guest or a host, we can use Agent IC to talk straight to the host, like, hey, we need you to keep moving, or don't talk to that person anymore, or whatever it is. So all of that back channeling can happen. So the producers can be anywhere in the world, and the participants can be anywhere in the world, and you can have they can still be talking during the show and everything else. And so it really kind of ties all that up. Jason.
It's worth mentioning that what Alex just described was, what would you say, Alex, $40,000-$50,000 in hardware and at least 3 people. At least 3 people.
It's $250,000 of hardware.
Yeah.
It's not, it's like, so it's not a little bit of hardware, but it would be very hard to map that and to control it it would be very hard. Each Eclipse is, $50,000-$60,000, depending on what cards you have. So
I was just thinking of the audio chain, because the question was the audio chain. Like, for example, SIP protocol is just VoIP. Yeah, go ahead.
One of our systems is 2 CL5s, and the other one is a QL1. So the smaller system has a QL1. The other one has a primary and backup CL5 that are synced together. So that one's the kind of the mission critical, one. And then those are running through 2 constellations, and then there's a whole bunch of PCs, and then there's a bunch of routing. There's a 72x72 router, and all that stuff starts to add up after a while. Grant.
So we've established that Alex takes a tank to the grocery store. And we love it, right? Because
it may not be a grocery store tank.
Yeah, this one's pretty much close. I'm taking a tank.
This is taking a tank to battle.
Yeah, like it's like we're doing pretty high profile events. So they're
going coast to coast.
Well, there's for a lot of our events, there's a lot of people watching. That's when it starts to get, when there's 100,000 people watching, it gets to be serious.
And I'm not having a go at that at all. I think that I just did an event where I rode a bike to the grocery store, and was able to do all of this large conference, a 2-day conference, in a single Zoom meeting. And the way I did it, I've spoken about it before, but was with breakout rooms. And so I used breakout rooms as my stages. And so the main Zoom meeting where you all arrive is the green room. So it went nowhere. It was sitting on one laptop, and that's where I greeted each of the guests. And then I had 2 stages. And so depending on, because it was panels going back and forth. And so stage 1, I'd put them straight in. I'd do the whole panel discussion. I didn't have to do any special audio routing because it was all just handled in Zoom. But I had the extra control of being able to pull people out and also do a complete tech check with them before they went in. And even if they were late, I was able to do that and then put them in. And then while that panel was going, I'm getting stage 2 ready. Same green room
Really
experience. And then sending them into stage 2. So I had 4 laptops. I had a host as well. And a host, this was really cool too. The host would sit with us and we would go back and forth during the panel. And then she would jump in at the start and the end of each of the panel discussions. So we would just drag her into stage 1 or 2. She would finish it. Then I'd drag her into the next stage and she would start it. And then she would come back into her room. And that's how we communicated, just with 4 laptops and 1 Zoom meeting. Went great.
Any total attendees, Grant?
So that was streaming. So then it was like 300 people or something on Vimeo. And that's when I used the ATEM. And it all worked really well. And the response, from all of those, the guests, they loved it. All the speakers just loved it. It was just so easy. And then the attendees thought it was great. Just worked really smooth.
And just to be clear, we were talking about it over the weekend that I have a system that is only there to run Zoom, like to just do Zoom only events. I don't use the big system for absolutely every event. We use the system that we ride a bike when there is a bike to ride. I use
when there's a bike path.
When there's a bike path, and that's all there is, or all that's necessary. There's no reason. I don't use big equipment just because there's big equipment in the office. I use it because that show is requires that level, because we're getting. What happened was that we had a client that was doing a bunch of basically Zoom rooms. And we said, hey, by the way, we could just produce these and push them into Zoom. So it would look just like your live streams, except it would be in Zoom. And as soon as they got that, they all became that way. Like it was all, as soon as they saw that I could have graphics and lower thirds and 4-ups and play video and do all the other, like when all of that happened, when all that hit. And so a lot of it is that, what we work on pretty hard is to get clients, there's a level of quality that you can jump to when you start adding some of that stuff. And obviously you want to distinguish yourself from everything else as best you can. So if you have it, you try to use it on everything, if you can get the budget for it. Anyway, go ahead, Chris. Next question.
Ken Jones from Seattle says, live streaming Sunday Mass using Vixia R800 ATEM Mini OBS on a MacBook. From one week to the other, my audio delay changes. Sometimes it's as much as 1400 milliseconds. Not consistent from week to week. Comments, what's up with that? He says. That's one word. What's up with
Sky?
that?
I'm sorry. And yes, if I knew the answer, I wouldn't need to be sitting here because I'd be on an island somewhere with Alex. No, we did 22 weeks. At week 23, it locked up. We got in ahead of the Baptists is the only thing I can figure out. We started streaming at 9:45. We did exactly the same protocol. We're on Vimeo. We are using ATEM Mini. We're syncing up. We use the exact same settings every week. So I would love to know that answer. Other than the last 3 weeks, we've been consistently fairly rock solid in that we do a test 15 minutes before the 10 o'clock hour. And we're now streaming straight to YouTube, and it's seeming to be the mouse and the puppet seem to be talking at the same time.
Go ahead, Mickey.
Mouth and the Muppet.
Yeah, I've noticed this happened on although this doesn't apply to Sky's situations because I know he has quite a powerful machine, but I've seen this happen on machines that are underpowered to run OBS. OBS isn't the most efficient app on a Mac. But yeah, for machines that are trying to cope with the processing load, and if they're dropping frames, I find that it slips in and out of sync depending on how many frames it's been dropping.
Yeah, anytime there's a sync issue that's variable, we immediately look at the software. The software switching software that is anywhere in the pipeline, is where we will hone in on almost immediately. I don't know exactly what the problem is, but I can almost guarantee that if you took OBS out of it, you'd probably find that it stays the same. Go ahead, Jason.
We moved over to vMix for that eventuality.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely gave up on OBS on the Mac. On a PC, it works wonderfully. I mean, it works so much better that, I mean, sync is the worst thing you can get wrong. I would say arguably one of the worst, aside from bad audio. So at the end of the day, cut it out and see, just use your switcher. Use your switcher just for it. Nobody cares about the graphics. The sync is more important.
Next question.
So that was Ken. Next one is Brian McDonough from Coppell. Can the ATEM Mini do multiple video input overlays on top of the main video input? I know it can natively do a PIP, but can multiple PIPs be accomplished via a Stream Deck and macros or some other thing?
Go, Jason.
No. Next question.
The first time you can do the multiples is Blackmagic calls that a super source, and the 2ME is the entry level that does multiple overlays. Go ahead, Roscoe.
For $295, you can buy another one, put it downstream, and away you go.
There you go. You can get a whole bunch of those and set them all up. You might have some delay issues, but your
delay probably
give
won't
it a
be
shot.
that bad.
It'll be different between each one. So anyway, next question.
Gabriel Ung again from Malaysia says, by default, Zoom streams video at 640 by 360. If someone with Zoom Rooms enters, does it increase your stream resolution to 1080?
We're seeing it with with 720. So definitely what's streaming out to YouTube right now is 720, and that is courtesy of Guy's conference room that is sitting in our little space here. So that's where that looks like. Yep. Next question. Oh, go ahead, Grant.
I was going to say, is it true, Guy, if you remove that room or if we remove that room, will we stay at 720?
I don't think it would change in the middle of the stream. I don't think it would. I don't think it would stay in. I don't want to test it.
Go ahead. Just about it'll hold. It only has to enter into the room for about 20 seconds. That was kind of our little insider thing.
Can Grant confirm how he sets up mini rooms at high resolution?
All I was going to say is that, yeah, exactly that you join it for 20 seconds and away it goes. So I mean, it was
there's such a Zoom room as a service now. It's not even that you have to join and stay. You literally could just have an operator sitting there just joining people's rooms for 20 seconds.
So
you get make it even. And you get 720 and you get 720. Go ahead.
You can make it even easier with like Guy has said before, where you do auto answer on the room, and then from within Zoom you invite the room, and so you're not messing around with numbers or anything. You just invite the room. It auto answers, and then you can just hang up, and then you do it. So before we had HD properly across our account, one of my jobs was to sit there across 45 meetings one time and upgrade them all to 720. So it was a fun process.
That's great. Beju.
Yeah, just going to go about that, inviting the Zoom room in. The other thing is it also happens even if it's waiting in the waiting room, even if it's not in the meeting. I've seen that jump up to 720, even if it's just waiting to be admitted in as well. So that also works as well.
Go ahead, Mickey, and then Hosmund.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that, Beju. But yeah, it's actually part of our more detailed technical run of show that it's called Bump Up to 720. Which is just someone spending 30 seconds, bring a room in, kick it out.
We could do a whole second hour on Zoom hacks. Just hacks.
Yeah. Is it 720 only for the stream feed or also for us as panelists or those who are in the webinar?
Generally, I think ours is still, people can confirm that are in Mukana, but generally ours is still 640 by 360 for the participants in a webinar. There is a option to go to 1080p and we don't have it but I've seen the button. so
Okay.
like there's a radio box that would let you turn your let you turn 1080p for all the participants in a webinar, but evidently you have to be more special than we are. Stuart?
Chris, we'd apply Apple logic to doing hacks. If we provide hacks to people, they will close them. So let's not do that so that the hacks last.
Yeah, we've already talked about this one. And so anyway, Beju.
Yeah, just an add-on question to this. What I've seen is that we just got one of our accounts upgraded to HD. So what we saw that if you need to get 1080, the meeting has to be hosted on that 1080 account, right? Even if someone else, that 1080 account, the full HD account joins into another meeting, it peaks out at 720. Is that correct? That behavior correct? Or it should be doing it even if it joins the meeting, it should go to 1080?
Go ahead, Guy.
If the Zoom room joins somebody else's meeting, it'll bring it up to 720. It won't bring it to 1080. If you as an individual, even with a business account, come into somebody else's meeting and they're at 360, it doesn't do anything. Your account does nothing. It's the Zoom room that brings it up.
No, that's correct. It's more about like when you're hosting a meeting, like your enterprise, like I have an account which is enterprise, which has the 1080 upgrade on it. If it joins another meeting, which is 720, it doesn't bump it up to 1080. The meeting has to be hosted by the enterprise account.
That's correct.
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm that.
I will say that if Zoom made it easier for people to get to 1080 by paying for it, I think everyone would. There's a whole lot of money that would change hands. It just if we stably knew that we were just going to get what we're going to give you. I mean, I pay twice what I'm paying now to just know that it was 1080 all the time. So it's that I didn't have to think about it and I didn't have to mess with it, and all the webinars were 1080. Yeah. So anyway, next question.
Next one would be Stuart, our own Stuart. Hey, Stuart, you're right about the hacks. For panelists whose Mokose camera have arrived, any reports of the bit rate in HD and 4K, and is there a flat profile? That's what I'm on. And I will tell you.
Is that what you're using right now?
Yeah, I still have not got the battery for the remote. I literally just plugged it in, focused it.
Now, so you're using it right now, and are you using the webcam or using the USB out or the HDMI
USB out? Yes.
Yeah. Because I definitely think that the HDMI out when Jeff was using it was much sharper than the USB. It just less.
I'm an editor. I don't know how to focus it. Maybe I have it wrong.
No. It doesn't. I mean, it looks just a little more compressed. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, that's because it is actually going, when you're in HDMI mode, you can go up to 4K, whereas the USB mode, you can only go up to 1080p.
No, but I don't think that matters in Zoom. I just felt like the Zoom, even through Zoom, I could see a difference between the 4K and the USB. Like the USB, I think, is compressing it more than Zoom is, which is amazing. Jeff, are you using it right now? Jeff Francis? No.
I am not. No, it's at the office and I'm at home.
Okay, there you go.
So tomorrow.
Yep. Next question.
Next question would be from Jonas Datel. He says, has anyone experimented with using NGINX as a recorder for the ATEM Mini Pro?
And I think it's NGINX, I think is the...
It may be, but I don't know that.
I have not used it. Anyone else?
My understanding of NGINX is that it's a load balancer. I didn't know it could actually record. That's news to me.
It's a web server is what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we haven't done that yet. Next question.
Mr. Mobley once again says, what is the best way to bring another church in an existing church Zoom?
Go ahead, Sky.
Very carefully.
Sorry, I'm going to step away and listen because we were streaming the Seahawks game in the sanctuary, so I'm assuming we could just stream anything in all over the internet. We were the only ones watching it, by the way, and we're a Seahawks fan.
So the real challenge with space to space, bigger than just church to church, but space to space, and churches happen to be a little bit more a lot of them tend to be more challenging because they're roomier. They have a lot of reflection that can occur inside, but space to space, you either need, it's the microphones that become really a challenge, is not sending return audio back into the Zoom to each other. So there are a couple different solutions to that. One is everybody uses SM58s when they talk to each other, because there's a lot of off-axis rejection if you have two spaces that want to talk to each other. That's the least pretty, but effective if you don't have a ton of tools to do it. The second is someone to ride the levels. When one side's talking, you ride the levels down to make that work. The more refined one, if you have an engineer that can run with it, is a Dugan. So basically what you're doing is you're attenuating, you're using the mic or the speaker output you're using the speaker output to attenuate the mic. So when someone talks on the other end, it automatically pushes the mic down. And when we do it, that's what we do, is that we use a Dugan auto mix to mix between those two, and it works. It needs some tuning, but once tuned, it works really well. Go ahead, Sky, and then Jason.
Well, Alex, to your point of the Bane mask, we are just now getting everything all nicely audio with the nice good headset mics. But now that the pastor has glasses and that we're going back into people coming into the building, they're going to have to be presenting with a mask on. So that solves our sync problem. But now we've got a lot of things hanging off the ear. So it was discussed to possibly put a lav on rather than trying to put would you put a mic on the inside? I know you've been experimenting with that.
I've been experimenting. I'm going to be working on it more this week. I had to get the different kind of, my first ones were using the ABS, and it was, they were breaking. So they, when I tried to move them around, they just were too fragile. So I've got this kind of more rubberized filament that I'm now going to go into to try to print something that is a little bit more. And where I'm starting, my starting point there is using the 3D app that scans your face and builds a mask.
Right.
Because what that does is it gives you the contour of your face on the mask, and then I'm building from there. And I just have been, this is my first week where my schedule is a little closer to my own. So I'm going to work on a little bit each evening.
Would you do a lav? Is it just going to sound
My plan is
muffled
to use a Countryman lav. So it's basically this without the arm. So it's just a cable. So then what I'm doing is I'm building a little C hook on the inside so that there's a little opening here that'll seal down, and so you can run a cable through it, and then but it'll clip twice, once right behind where the pickup is, and once right here, so that it'll hold the cable inside the mask. And then the next thing I'm assuming I'm going to have to do is play with the size of the mask and the interior part of the mask to reduce reflection. So the geometry of that piece on that one side. And then the question is, does it look like a tumor if I put it if I blow it out on one side and not on the other? And there's a bunch of other things.
You can make it a flat surface and charge ad space.
Well, what I want to do is get a really good painter to paint it so it just looks like your face, except kind of weird. It just really mess with people. Anyway, go ahead, Jason. We're gonna move. We're gonna move a little faster.
I love
Jason,
the idea of a vampire like mold for a face instead of like for a lapel mic. But my comment was about the Dugan Auto Mix. It's imperative to understand that despite its namesake, you have to understand how it works and its limitations. Yeah. That is a big if. You can't skip that part.
We don't recommend that for people who don't have a real audio engineer working on it, because it with great power comes great responsibility, and there is nothing like having mics return the far audio back to really screw up an event. So, we tend to, if we don't have confidence in the far end, or if Brian doesn't have control of their mixer, then we tend to say, hey, you should just use some SM58s. Go ahead, Roscoe, and then we'll move on. We're going to start moving really fast.
Yeah, I think you guys overcomplicated this one. I think he just wants to bring a stream of another church in. So, Tony, you have the ATEM Mini. Get another computer that has HDMI out and scrape it and just send it into your ATEM Mini and just pop the button. You'll be able to see that other church come in.
There you go. Next question.
Marty Adias says, for Alex's talkbacks, how are you routing the matrix outputs to individual Zoom panelists? Does each output have its own Zoom connection?
Yes, each output has its own Zoom connection, and it's being managed. It's a Dante connection between the mixer and the Eclipse, and then the Eclipse has been assigned to each one of those computers as a output. So that's how that works. And they, it's all, but we're managing all of that through Dante. Next question.
Mr. Dragoo says, has anyone tested on-prem Zoom servers? I'm wondering if you have additional controls over quality, Zoom self-hosted private cloud.
I don't know if anyone's done that yet. No. There's not a lot of on-prem stuff going on yet. So I think everyone's excited about the cloud end. Yeah, we'll keep our eye out.
You need people on-prem first.
Right, exactly. Next question.
All right, so this is, excuse me, referring back to something that Grant was talking about. Gabriel says, Grant, I was attempting this exact solution too. Panelists in breakout rooms gave me control of their audio to send back the gallery. Question, did you need an additional account that takes gallery audio back into the breakout room for participant questions?
No, it didn't need another account. It's another machine. Sorry. I had 4 machines that were connected to that same room, but they were all free account. They were free accounts. There was just one paid account. And so you could add as many as you like. But I purposely put only the people where the audio was happening in that one stage. And to open up to audience, you could do it and do mix minus and all of that. But we didn't have that. We just did text questions. It was much easier.
Okay. Laura Seal says, has anyone I'm sorry, I just kind of took over there. Sorry about that. Laura Seal says, has anyone tested or deployed the new breakout rooms in WebEx? And if so, how'd it go?
Not a lot of WebEx users here, I think, is the problem.
Crickets.
It's kind of like it's mostly I have one partner that has WebEx, and it's always like, oh right, when I hit the button, when I hit the link, I'm always like, oh dag nabbit, and then I know so like I'm gonna be stuck in WebEx. I have to restart my computer, and after WebEx I have to clean my computer because it's like grabbed onto a whole bunch of my devices and everything else. I won't give them up. So,
I had one client who used it, but they're moving to something else. They're moving to Teams, I think.
Yep. Next question.
Ken Jones from Seattle, define scrape.
Scrape is just taking the screen. We call it screen scraping. And so it's just taking the screen output. So that'll be mirroring your screen to a HDMI output and then pushing it into something that's either going to stream or display it or so on and so forth. Go ahead, Roscoe.
Mac Minis have an HDMI output. Easy to scrape screen.
Yeah, but what it is actually just grabbing onto your screen and putting it out somewhere. It's not. This is distinct from if you had a decklink card and you push the video out of the decklink card. That is an output. This is basically it. The reason it's screen scrape is that you can't get to it any other way. You might be trying to grab a web interface or whatever. The disadvantage is make sure all your notifications are turned off. Like that's the big thing. It's why pretty much on all my machines I've just gotten into the habit of I turn all my notifications off and they turn on from 9:59 to 10 o'clock at night. The long string goes down the side, but I turn all notifications off on my computers as much as I can. Everything that I can get rid of, I will, because there's nothing like having a notification come up while you're streaming a screen scrape. Jason?
Yeah, the easiest way to think about it is if you go into QuickTime and you go to screen record or a screen cap, it's exactly that. Recording part of a screen, recording part of an app, except doing that in a way that is switchable. And usually when we're talking about a screen scrape, that's what we mean.
Yep. Next question. We're going to go fast.
Marty says that Alex should take a look at BubbleBee's lav mounting accessories. Perhaps.
Yeah, they look good. They look good. They're just more than what I'd want to put in the side. I know what you're talking about. They're great for putting lavs underneath things and everything else, but they're not what I'm trying to do. Anyway, we'll keep moving on because we're almost out of time. Next
Victor
question.
says, can Mickey or anyone talk more about the input and output routing possibilities using sound devices units? I find it complex, he says.
20 seconds, go.
Yeah, we don't have enough time. Yeah, 20 seconds for the routing. Let's save that question. And Victor, if you can ask that tomorrow first thing, we will have Mickey dive into it because tomorrow's the audio day anyway. So we'll have Mickey dive into the IO there. So let's do that. Go ahead, Mickey. You got.
Yeah, I just want to say I find it complex too. And inputs, outputs.
Very good. You know what? I'll ping somebody else that might be able to talk about it. So we'll see if
I
we can
feel
drag
so
him
much
in.
better now.
I'll see if I can drag somebody in tomorrow. We'll see. You'll see what his schedule's like. So
nice touch there, Nikki.
Yeah. So all right. We are now shifting gears. Everybody's excited about. I mean, I think we've been waiting for Lawrence to talk about this since Victor started talking to Lawrence, and suddenly we had this master understanding how to run your ATEM with QLab, and so anyway, so what we're talking about today, of course, is QLab and its integration with the ATEM. Lawrence, how did you get to this point where you started to have QLab pushing the ATEM?
Well, I'm a creative. I'm a creative. I'm a projection designer and videographer. So when the pandemic happened, all my shows one by one were getting canceled, and I got a little nervous about that. And then shortly after, I was very lucky to have found one of the ATEMs in stock, like in April, because I've never streamed a show before. That was not my forte. And I dived into the ATEM and learned everything. And then I said, okay, now I need to bring in videos and media. So I need a hyperdeck, and that's another $700. And now I have to look into streaming software. So what do I use? OBS, vMix, Mimo Live. And I was going over all those options, but I said, you know, the ATEM Mini Pro can record, so I don't need the recording capabilities of a HyperDeck Studio. And then it also streams, so I don't really need streaming software. So, but I still need a solution for media. And since I'm using QLab, that's my tool of trade, I said, let's see how far I can push QLab. And that's where it all started. And then a few months later, it's like, whoa, this is like a Swiss Army knife. And I'm starting to have fun with it. I hope to share some of that with you guys today. So that's the
great
short answer.
And so if you have, as Lawrence starts to talk, I think you've got a little bit of a presentation you want to show, Lawrence, or you have a couple things you want to show?
Yeah, I have a lot of stuff, and I'll share my screen, and hopefully it holds up.
Yeah, and so Lawrence is going to show a couple things here and dig in. If you have questions for Lawrence, go ahead and start asking him, you know, as he starts to talk, and then we'll try to make sure we have enough time at the end to get to those. Anyway, go ahead, Lawrence. Take it away.
All right. So as a disclaimer first, maybe I should use streaming software. If you guys know QLab, you will say, of course you can do that. So it's all just, I'm open for alternatives, but I just want to quickly touch on the alternatives to bring, and I have a screen now here. This is the alternatives of bringing, if you want to bring in graphics into, let's pin me, spotlight for everybody. So basically, these are the softwares and utilities that I tested, and I'm planning to use or test in one way or another. I'm very Mac based, so but these are the alternatives. H2R Graphics is for Mac and Windows. It's free. You can do lower thirds. You can bring in graphics. Keynote, obviously, from Apple, which I use on a daily basis. Playout B is a new one. Is basically a HyperDeck simulator on a Raspberry Pi. There's a Windows version in the making. Then there is a good app, Mix 16 Pro, from Mix 16 Apps, that has both a Mac app or an iPad app that allows you to bring in audio and video and queue it all. It's pretty affordable. Then MIDI is amazing. It's a QLab alternative. It's Mac only. Then ProPresenter obviously is a big one. And the ProPresenter 7 is really quite impressive. And then QLab. This is the overview of just to put things in perspective. So let's share my screen and get this out of the way. Let's share my screen. I can do that. Only host all panelists. Let's see. Who can share? What do I, advanced options in sharing? What do I, Alex, what do I, if I have, you're muted. I don't hear you.
Sorry. You want to have audio in the advanced options? Do you need to show audio?
No, it says advanced sharing options. Who can share? Only host all panelists.
Don't.
Who can...
Sorry, Lawrence. Don't click the up arrow. Just click the big share screen button.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now we got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Confusing. I hit that every single time.
I do have to share my full desktop. Let's get that out of the way for now. So what's QLab? QLab is, do you guys see it all? It might be, it's all, so hopefully it's somehow sharp. So QLab is basically a multimedia playback queue-based sound and video control. It's very stable, and it can play anything your Mac can play. It's designed for theater and live entertainment. It plays well with other hardware, and it takes very little system overhead. So this is an example of what QLab is really shining for. This is a show. This is, I do a lot of theater stuff. This is, I designed the let's see. So this was a play in Monster Calls. This is a quite simple play with a projection plot with one projector. And there's about 500 projection cues in this show. And basically what you do in QLab, you line up all your media, and you hit, the only button you hit during a show is the space bar. So if this is when the pre-show, when the people come in, then I hit the space bar and it will open the show. It fades to black. And then I hit the space bar and it will open the opening animation. And these are the animations I design in Motion and in Final Cut. So, and every time there's a cue in the show, you hit the space bar, you go to the location, there's a kitchen, and you show a tree. So this is just to give you an idea what QLab is very good for. So this is like, if we do shows with like 4 or 5 projectors, it's not unusual that we have like close to 2,000 projection cues. So that's really where QLab shines. That was just to give you a little bit of an
and the way that, and to be clear, the way that works in QLab, and we'll maybe probably spend another hour on QLab at some point, but when you're doing those cues, you would have a separate computer that's driving those other monitors, and it's being told to play by the kind of the master cue.
No, as long as all the projectors are all connected to one computer. Well, if in case it's the limitation of the iMac Pros, but we do like 3 or 4 on one computer, and you just send QLab. You send to several screens. It comes from one computer, and you say, okay, this image go to this projector, and then you add a mask, and we can add projection mapping.
But you can split it up, right? You can have playouts on different computers if you wanted to, and have one telling them all go.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That's actually what I have setting up here now to demonstrate some stuff. I have QLab running on 2 computers. So that was just to give you an idea. There's no other software that is, in my opinion, that would do something like that. But now back to the ATEM Mini. Let's close this guy. So basically, let's set it up here, and I will put out so many buttons to push. I have a lot of things linked and a lot of things that can go wrong. Let's hope it holds up. So, and this is my cue. I will do this. And new movie recording. So basically what I'm trying to do here is linking my ATEM, QLab, and giving you the preview all at the same time. So this is the preview out of my ATEM. So if I click, this is to my second, this is the image.
Well, that's the program out of your ATEM, right? That's the program, what we're looking at.
Yeah, that's program number 1, that's program number 2, and then I have a second computer connected that shows me, in this case, just 2 still images. So this is QuickTime just showing my ATEM output, my program feed, yes. So if we go to the basics, so I'm going to, this is my output screen here. So if I go to the basics, I just lined up some images here. This is an image, another image. This is a movie file. This is another movie file. So that can be done with the free version. Basically, you hit the space bar and it shows the picture. Hit the space bar, it shows another picture. Hit the space bar, it shows a picture. Hit the space bar, it shows a movie. Hit the space bar, it shows another movie. Hit the space bar, it shows another movie. And all these cues are playing. So that's the basic idea behind QLab. And that is how you can, that's the basics, that's the beginning. So once for all this media, for images and pictures, you can set You can set, for movies, you can set the in and out points. You can say, okay, it needs to be looping. You need to hold the frame at the end. And you can set the properties of those, of the images you bring in.
Often
So
presentation software is very limited. I mean, it traditionally has been limited to what types of files? Do they have the licenses to all the different MPEGs and J?
Yes. So
AVI.
all the AVI, everything that the Mac is supporting natively, you can throw into QLab, and it will play it flawlessly.
Wow. And
so
no matter what size and
no matter what size, I throw in 4K. I use, like for shows, if you have, if you send videos to 5 projectors and you layer videos with alpha channels, I use ProRes 444 and Lite, what is it? ProRes Lite 422, just to limit the decompression. But it depends on your computer, the strength of your computer, and it depends on the strength of your computer and
GPU or CPU or how much RAM?
My computer here, this is a 2017 iMac I'm using right here, but I have 40 gigs of RAM. But the show computer, we have an iMac Pro, we use minis, I use laptops, it all depends. Any more questions at this point before we move on?
Can I would like to ask, have you ever used Watchout? And is it similar, do you know?
I'm not familiar with Watchout. Is that a Mac-based?
Yeah.
No, Watchout. I don't know if it's is it Mac-based? I don't.
Yeah, well, it started out as Mac-based, and then they extended the players to allow PC. But the idea was a sort of museum installation, multi-screen, multi-projector canvases, similar kind of an idea. I just wondered how it compared. We used that a lot in the old days.
No. Interesting to look into it.
We used to call it. I mean, we had a couple companies that used it a lot, and we used to call it Lookout because it usually meant we had to look out at everything to make sure that we were going to get what we expected. The most typical problem with Watchout is that it does a scaling problem in the images where we get little black lines across the bottom and the top, and we see some issues, going out to it.
Right.
That and it crashes, and so. So that's been the challenge that we've had with Watchout.
I guess my question was, when you were talking about having sort of this paradigm of one computer per projector for, like, if you had like really big, 4K projectors and a lot of motion on each image, you'd probably want to dedicate a computer. And can you design a show across multiple screens? It had this design metaphor so that you could actually have a designer have this
and I think I'm gonna table that question, because what I'm gonna try to do is persuade Lawrence to come back and do a whole QLab.
Yeah.
So we're gonna persuade Lawrence to come back and do a whole QLab hour for us in the next couple of weeks, because I think that's a whole world in itself, and I want to make sure that by the end of this hour we cover the ATEM controls, because Watchout is deep, and not Watchout, but QLab is deep. And so let's but Phil, I think I'd love to have this continue this conversation. So just save those questions. But I think that I think that one's going to be a lot of discussion, and I think that I want to pull this one back to the ATEM.
Alex, if I can just put in real quick, QLab is caching the next element in the background while the current element is playing. So that's where you have to be careful about your resolutions and how big your movies are.
Drive speed.
Yeah.
Lawrence, a quick question. How do you bring ATEM control into QLab?
That's next. Now it becomes exciting. This was just to give an idea. And this can be done so far with the free version. So let's move on. And so let's go quickly. You can also make cue cards. Let's not go there. Let's go straight to the ATEM control. Let's do it here. So basically what, we can go back to the simple stuff if we have time. So basically how you can control the ATEM is to link both together. And for that, I use OSC. It's Open Sound Control. Open Sound Control is basically, think MIDI, but more advanced. It's bidirectional. It has a higher resolution of messaging. It's basically a protocol to link computers, soundboards, light boards together and send commands. So you can make the ATEM software aware of that. And it's a program called ATEM OSC. And if you click that, it's a very simple little utility. It's free. It's basically, you have to put in your switcher address and that's all you need to do. And then you set it aside. At this point, when you do that, that might be too small to read, but these are all the commands and that you can send and control the ATEM with. You can set transitions, you can set your sources, obviously. You can, everything that's upstream keyer does, you can set the downstream keyers, you can set values, toggle them on and off. Basically what you can do in macros, you can do here and send over OSC. So I will show you that. So we'll put that aside. So here I made now QLab available, and I give QLab a queue, a network queue, and the only thing I'm sending now is ATEM program 1. So that's what's set. If I run this queue, select program 2, what you can see here, it will automatically trigger my second output, and my third, and my fourth. So this is the basics of switching and sending, OSC controls. And then you can do interesting stuff. Then you can say, okay, this, for example, here is a movie that plays. It's a counter, just as an example. So I can make a queue that says, okay, go to program 2, start the movie, pre-roll the movie, and then switch back to me. So that's what I'm going to do. So it shows the movie, and then you see the counters at the end, it will automatically switch back to me. So you can build those shortcuts, you can build those sequences during a show that you can hit the space bar and it does that for you. When I'm going and film at a client's, I'm a one-man band, so I'm filming with 2 or 3 cameras, I'm switching the show, I'm recording it. So I try to prepare as much as I can into the principle and the concept of making a show. It starts with a counter. There's a graphic. Then there is a camera switch. There might be a lower third. So all these things I try to line up, and I can hit the space bar. Or what I can do is I can give it triggers. I can give it shortcuts. Like, for example, I can say, okay, this is option 6. Every time I hit option 6, it will do that for me. And that allows me to link that to a Stream Deck with the native software from the Stream Deck. So I don't have to jump through the companion loop to do so, which is also sometimes can be an advantage. So a little break here. Any questions so far before I hope it makes a little bit of sense what I'm saying. No questions?
It is. Let's see here. We've got a couple questions here. Victor asks, can you talk about the fade object in QLab and the various uses for it?
Yes, perfect timing. So here, what I'm trying to do here, this was a basic switch. What I'm here trying to do is start this movie, switch to, start the movie, pre-roll it basically, set preview 2 in the ATEM, then do a fade transition, not a cut. And then when the movie's done, I set the movie, played for 10 seconds, I said that here, set the preview back to me, and then fade, and then stop the movie. So this again is, if everything goes fine, it fades, it switches the ATEM, it will automatically, after 10 seconds, should fading back to me. I'm not touching anything, except it fades back to me, and the movie stops. So that's another example. And here, here we are using the fade of the ATEM, but let's see, I have this here. Where is that lower third cue card? That's what Victor is referring to. So fading, you can have a fade command in QLab as well. You can fade in media in and out, but you can also, I'm jumping here a little bit. That might be a little bit confusing to explain, but basically, when you have a graphic, in this case, let's see what that graphic, show you the graphic. Let's see. So that's the graphic. This is just a black background with 2 bars. I bring that into QLab. It's right there. And On top of that, I added my name as a text cue. I added my title, and then I basically use a fade command to move in this whole block of information, move it in the screen and out of the screen. Let's just run it.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes,
there?
go ahead. Yeah.
That last one you showed with the 10-second video roll,
Yeah.
is it possible to do the preview earlier while it's in the 10 seconds so it's not waiting for that 10-second clip to be finished before it hits the preview? You know what I mean?
Can you rephrase that?
All right. So a minute ago, you showed an example where you were cutting to a 10-second video clip.
Yes.
And then the next cue was change the preview.
Yes.
What I was asking, can you make that preview happen earlier, like 5 seconds into the roll?
Like the fade in or the fade out?
Simultaneously.
Anything that's manually triggered can be triggered early. I mean, as long as the sequence is running, you can hit that go button. You can either click the go button or tap the space bar anytime you want during that event, and it will trigger the next event.
It doesn't need to wait till that event's complete.
It does not need to wait.
No.
Okay.
It does not need to wait. No.
All right.
No. In this case here, so in this case no, it's just all linked together. It doesn't have to wait. It's actually
Okay.
Yeah, it's zero. I never use 0 seconds, but it's like it's 1/10 of a second.
Okay.
So
if I can interject real quick, Phil, that is the power of QLab. The fact that you have an actor that's suddenly going to drop something on the ground and you suddenly trigger the breaking glass effect. That's what QLab is for that immediate triggering when you want it.
Right.
Cool.
So let me finish my thought there on the moving on. Basically, let me run this. Let's see if. Let's see. Yeah, should have put it on air. So let's cancel this. So this is here. This is a moving. So a fader can be used to move. A fader can be. This is an example how you can use the fading to move an object. So I'm basically moving those 3 objects. I wait 10 seconds and it automatically comes down. And now I have a bad. So that's referring to.
And so there you're defining that group is defining those 3 objects together, and then there's an action that is calling that group in and out.
Yes, that's correct. So here there's the image, and then I can change the name, and office.
And that group
hours
could have a video in it as well. Like it could have some kind of animation or whatever when it rolls out, as when it's called. So it could not only just move in and move out, but it could be an animation that's doing that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anything, you can group anything and you can control it individually, or you can, you see basically here, you said I made a group out of it and then just, okay, start all the children simultaneously. So all these things that are in this group are automatically fired.
Right.
And then
and again, the power of a lot of these controls is that could be not just tied to the ATEM, but it could be tied to lights and all kinds of other things that are happening. It's sending out commands against that process.
And
so
QLab is doing that move in that of all of that people.
Yeah, and this example here that I showed, I just say, okay, if this moves, QLab is moving this. Basically what it does, I put it off screen. So here it's off screen. You can see it, and then basically move it in. If I go to geometry, it moves it 800 pixels to the right.
Is there a linear keyframe visual, or is it all just numbers? Oh, there it is. That's the answer.
Look at that.
So
it's great F-curve.
You can busy.
Yeah, you can set the curves. You can set the speeds. You can do this for audio, for video, for images. Your fade command is your best friend, but fade command is not available in the free version. So if you want to use the free version of QLab, you have to make sure your fades, your moves, your animation are built in your movies. Like you cannot fade with the free command.
And that's doing a key fill out. And that's doing a key fill out.
Yes, that did a key fill out. Yes, and I used the down screen. So this is here. Let's go back there. So actually, this is So the one I showed earlier. So I made sure before I hit this, I send an OSC command to QLab, to ATEM software to make sure that I have my downstream fill sources and key sources and my my clip settings properly set. So basically what it does here, I have my macros. I have two macros that I programmed here. One is, yeah, so you see here, one is for something I'm gonna explain a little bit. So this changes fill and key source and added multiplied, and the other macro sets the fill and the key source to Luma keying. And that's what I'm sending here. I'm pretty much preparing the ATEM. I said, okay, make sure before I fire this that you set the proper.
So in this case, you're not doing key fill. You're just doing you're just keying from the Luma information.
Yeah,
yeah. But you could do
absolutely.
key fill.
Yes, I will show that in a second.
Okay, great.
So then what else? So the ATEM control. Oh, so here's something interesting that I did for Victor, where it really became powerful. So Victor's for his saxophone show, he's not allowed to use the ATEM buttons, physical buttons, while he's playing. So he was asking me if it was possible to make a script in QLab. And so basically, what we did here is he has a track, a background track that he gave me. I'm not sure I'm going to hear it. Do you hear the audio?
Yeah, we hear it.
Okay, so, and you set markers. I can set markers while it's playing. I set markers. And so when I do that, I can actually now link markers to timed events. So if I go in my timeline here, these markers are now, I can drag them to my markers that I set in my music, and I say, okay, at this marker, switch to program 2. At this marker, switch to program 3. So, and when I run this, you will see that when I run this concept, I run this queue, you will see that the ATEM will automatically switch. And it's basically setting all these pre-timers based on your markers, and it can activate a light in the background. It can trigger a lower third. It can change a camera. So any cue in QLab can be linked that way.
And because that's based on the song and not on a time or something like that, you could be an artist that's going to have a conversation with the audience. And then you go, okay, now I'm going to start playing, and you hit go, and you're listening to it. You're listening to something that lets you, that just has all that stuff, so that you're not pre-planning the whole show. You're pre-planning how someone's going to experience that song.
That's exactly how I do it, Alex. That's exactly what I do on Sunday.
Amazing.
Well,
and that can be done, to be fair to other wonderful programs, that cannot be done with MIDI, but it can be done with the companion app of MIDI. It's called Visair, and Visair is basically a sequencer that does this kind of stuff on steroids. So you need both programs to do what I'm showing here, but Visair is a power. You can do, send MIDI commands, send OCS commands, you do all kind of control.
And so Visair would you say it's more powerful than QLab in that sense of automation?
I think so. I think it does so much more. I'm not I have not used it extensively, but I did test this stuff on Visair to show Victor an alternative solution.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of steroids, so you talk about the free functionality. I really do feel like, the first one's free, little guy. But I'm wondering, at what point do we have to start paying for some of these things that you're showing us? And this is outrageously amazing for what is quote free, but
just to be this,
where's the cutoff?
The free version does not allow the fades and does not allow this network control. The free version just will allow, this does a lot of audio stuff. And the free version would allow you to line up videos, images, and all that stuff, and play them and loop them and set in points and out points and send them to one surface. You can use one output. You can only send it to one device, one display. And you know, and a follow-up, I'm happy to go through that exactly how that would be set up. But if you want to use anything else I've showed after that, you need the video license. You don't need the audio license. You need the video license, or you can rent it.
A couple questions coming in. I'm going to start with those ones. A couple questions coming through. Mickey asks, what do you use as a surface output in a professional environment? Can you use Kona cards?
I don't know what that means.
AJA cards, AJA or Blackmagic cards. Can you use?
I don't know.
Like an AJA Kona card or, and Mickey, I'm almost certain you can. So I'm not 100% sure, but I'm almost certain.
There is and maybe, I don't know if that's, but ATEM OS, yeah, there is a way that there's a Blackmagic. I think there might be a way. I have never done it.
I'm pretty sure, like, for instance, the key fill out, I believe you can use like a Decklink card or a Ultra Studio. You know,
pretty much anything you can attach to a Mac, you can talk to.
Yeah,
there's something like Black Siphon that allows you to connect Blackmagic devices to a Siphon, what I'm going to cover next, or Siphons to Blackmagic. And this, I saw this is for Decklink cards and stuff like that, but I don't have one. And that will bring it into QLab.
Another question from Mickey is, when using a computer's HDMI display output as a surface, how do you make sure that the display is absolutely clean? No menus, no mice, no stray windows.
Yes. So good, very good question. And I forgot to do it myself. That's what I had my bad keying earlier. So if QLab doesn't send anything to the display, it will show whatever is on the desktop. So if in my case here, if I click to number 2, that's my desktop. We don't want that. We want black. So it's clean. There's no menus or anything like that. But we want to black it out in a show. And basically you do that in tools. You said blackout desktop backgrounds. And now all my desktops will be black. And if QLab does not do anything, it will be black, which you need to do. And I forgot. Every show we need to do that. So the next thing, so you can, of course, now, I'm not going to go into that, but you can connect, you can bring in cameras. You can bring any camera that's connected to your Mac, any video device that's connected to your Mac. You can bring it in and send it as a queue to, in my case, the ATEM. So you can, if your Mac has 3, other incoming feeds, you can now use a feed on the ATEM to send multiple multiple devices to. So that's definitely. So let's see if I. So I have this. So oh no, this is not good. So let's see if that works. So basically, you can extend. Can I show that? No, I cannot show this right now because it's all looped together. But so HDMI's sources hardware, via the Camlink 4K or via the Blackmagic video recorder. Here's something interesting. If you want to bring in other software, screen scrapes, basically. So how you do that in QLab? QLab uses the technology that's called Siphon, and Siphon, I'm sure some of you are familiar with it, but basically Siphon is it's almost like NDI, but locally on your computer. It makes a copy of anything you tell it to that exists in the video RAM. So it makes an output from one piece of software, the input for another piece of software, and it's lossless. There's no encoding or decoding because it's basically making a copy from the existent output in the video RAM. So let me show you that. So let me.
And essentially you could, if you wanted to, do some of the composites, the lower thirds and other things like that could all be done in QLab if you wanted to. Like it could be done and then you could take multiple video inputs, composite them together, and push them out to the ATEM if you wanted to.
Yes, but it's not it's definitely not as powerful if you would use vMix or Mimo Live or OBS. So that's, it will layer and it will show stuff, but if you want a lot of bells and whistles, you have to bring in your graphical elements. You can do it, but so going back to the Siphon, so that might be a good trick. So basically I'm using a program that's screen capture Siphon. That's Mac only. But basically what that allows me to do, it gives me
I just looked at Siphon, and if anyone who's ever played Marathon on the Mac will recognize the Siphon logo as something that looks familiar. Anyway, it's just rotate. It looks like the Marathon logo except rotated.
So
anyway.
Here I have the Mukana web page in a browser. I can tell this to capture the source, capture Safari, and capture Mukana. So I can put this aside now, and it now will. Oops, what did I do? Okay, I can put it aside on my second screen, but now I can go to make a camera queue, screen chapter Siphon, and now everything that's on my second screen is my screen scrape, and it's live, and there's no latency. So you can bring in any surface from any program this way. You can capture anything and bring it in as a screen scrape. And the interesting application for that is to control Keynote, which I used a lot. So if you use Keynote and let's fire this up, counter Keynote. So I made a simple Keynote application here that just shows 5 slides with the counter. And if I go to play in a window, and I'll put this on my second screen, which you guys cannot see, but it's on my second screen right now. It's on my second screen. And now I tell basically screen capture to go and capture, where is it? Keynote, where are you? Keynote, where's Keynote? Do I see it? Let's didn't refresh. Let's do it. Keynote, now here it is. I just select the Keynote file. It's on my second display playing. So now my surface should be, let's see, Siphon surface. See if it's working. Yes, so my second screen on my second input on my ATEM, if I'm switching here, I'm using the button, but I'm switching here now, that is my, it's coming from QLab and it's sending into the ATEM on my second screen, but now I can control it through AppleScript. So I can, okay, go to the next slide, go to the previous slide, go to slide 4. So now I'm showing and presenting and playing a Keynote presentation out of QLab and controlling it from QLab. And all these buttons here, again, you can trigger them with time code, MIDIs, and also shortcuts. Like I have the option N. I can put that on my Stream Deck, and here I can control.
And how is it doing the AppleScript connection to Keynote?
That's built in. So AppleScript is built into QLab. So it's basically, it's called a script queue. Mm-hmm. And so here I just told application Keynote, activate, show next slide, and then give the control back to QLab.
And what can you select like play slide 3?
Yes. So these are for example, play slide 3. Slide. So go to tell the front document, set current slide to 3, and then go back. This is what I do here. So
spacebar advances. Would you just hold what, like shift spacebar to reverse?
No, there's no reverse. That's I'm just now hitting. There's no. It's always go. You always go to the next queue.
Thank you.
This is actually interactive.
Yes, but there will be times that sometimes you missed a queue and you want to go back one.
Yeah. Well, the other key that's important in QLab is the panic button. Is basically the escape key, because now if I go here to the active queues, you have one surface, it's playing. So if I want to stop that, I can hit this button and it will stop the queue, fade to black, or you hit the escape key. So if you want to go back and you want to restore something, you would hit the queue again. Oh, I have to hit this queue.
Do you have a please stand by screen or a camera 3 that you always go wide to? No? Oh, okay.
No, but yeah, and the show, yeah. But basically that's this is an example of how you can screen scrape, bring it in and control it. Keynote. Yeah. Questions? Any questions?
Yeah, a couple more questions here. So Mike Henderson said, can you show linking the Stream Deck to QLab and that control. This is from Mike Henderson.
The Stream Deck to QLab. Yes. So since like this, for example, if I do Command N, the only thing I need to do is using the Stream Deck config and say here, do a hotkey, and say Command N, and now this will, if I hit this button, let's see if it works. If I hit this button, let's see. Let's try it again. Command N, play next. Yeah, so let's see, hit button. Yeah, there you go. Now it's a button on my Stream Deck that advances to the next slide.
Sky?
I am curious about price point. I didn't realize there was different levels to entry and also different, is it modules? And that there's also, I see Roscoe's, I think Roscoe had mentioned that because of students, free is awesome. We used to call that Photoshop. But then now so what are the price points, I guess? Because I'm only used to, spending my money with Guy Cochran, and if I can't spend it with him, I don't know how to do it. So.
Yeah. What are the big differences in that, Lawrence? Nope, you're muted.
Okay, you hear me now?
Yep.
The free version is pretty capable of audio stuff and does one surface where you can send video to, no fade command, like I said, and no network commands. There is a comparison list on their website. Then there is 3 versions you can buy. You can buy the video license, which I'm having. You can buy an advanced audio license, and then you can buy a lighting license that allows you to control show lights. And so I think there are, there's 300, what did I say? There's $400 each.
400 for audio, 400 for video. And
Yeah.
if you add lighting, it's 1,000, but you can also rent it for a period of time.
Yeah. So you can
just
rent it.
Dial in when you need it.
And it's $4. So you only need to, for what I'm showing. And again, I did not buy QLab because I had an ATEM. I used to, because I'm using ATEM QLab all the time, I just try to integrate it in my workflow, but it depends on your needs. But $400, or it's $4 a day to rent for 24 hours if you do the video license. And then also, if you want to play with it, here you can, in QLab, you can activate start demo mode, and that will activate all the features from all the packages for 20 minutes. You cannot save, but you can test and play.
That's cool.
And also, your license comes with 3 versions: one for your edit computer, your showrunner, and a backup. So basically, it comes with 3 licenses for 3 computers.
That's great. A couple more questions. Victor asks, can you show how to insert and camera switch command from QLab to the ATEM?
The switching.
Was that?
Yeah, I did that.
Was
right?
that yeah, I think that was an older one. Sorry, it just got to me later. That's all. It's all good.
So
all good.
Here.
Gabriel asks, can you make the group loopable or elements in the group play in random orders?
Yes, you can. So let's see. Let's make the basics there. Let's say that I want to play these 3 images. I want to make a group. And now once it's a group, you can decide the group. You say, okay, I want to start all the images at the same time. Or I start the first child and go into the group, go to the next queue, or in this case, start a random child, they call the children. So basically it will, every time you hit that, it will hit a different queue. And then you can play this again by going to play, start, basically. Start, let's do a group. Let's see if it works. It might not. Group. So start group. Let's add this up. So spotlight. So let's see if it works. Why does it switch? Why did it switch my? So start group again. Yeah. So start group again. It will, you basically make a loop, and then you can, yeah, you can link this together, and then it will play automatically everything that's in the group.
Next question is, Mickey asks, what does auto load do?
Auto load, you have control over your media. So for shows, if you have like an effect of a shattering glass, or no, a good example is a thunder and lightning. If you have a lightning projection that is projected over the screen, you know the cue is coming, and it can be linked with the soundboard. But you want to make sure that the media of the, that video is preloaded in memory. So when the cue is fired, it's ready to go. It's right there. It's in memory. So that's the reason of doing that. But by default, QLab does a pretty decent management of those things. It's only when you want to force it. You want to say, okay, this, you can say basics. You can say auto load here. And basically, when you hit the cue, before I hadn't hit the cue, but you see there's a little preload now here. So when I hit this, it will fire immediately on my second screen in this case.
Can you load everything into RAM?
Yeah, as long as, yeah, if need. I hardly use preload, because if you maybe I use it maybe on 3 occasions in a show on 2,000 cues. Normally it does not need it, but you can. Yeah, you can. As long as you have memory.
Yeah, I was going to say videos eat up a lot.
Yeah, if I in this case, so yeah, if I, they're all. And since you only play cue by cue, yeah, you can.
In the world, in my world, I'm always like, how do I make this to make absolutely sure that it's going to come out the other end and I'm not going to lose a frame? Go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, in your experience, Lawrence, what's the difference in responsiveness between autoload and not autoload?
Not a lot. QLab is very smart, and if you use SSD drives, it's normally not an issue. Like just for special effects, sometimes if it's mission critical, it needs to be there. So can I quickly go over 3 more things that might interest you? Is that okay?
Yep, absolutely.
Alex?
Keep going.
So NDI cameras, you can bring in the NDI sources as well. It might be, so here, let's see if I have my iPad mini running. Let's see, where is that? NDA to siphon. So that's another interesting piece of software. So now, since we use siphons that QLab recognizes siphons, this is a tool. By the way, I put all those links already in Mokana, all these links to all these software things already on Mokana on the chat links. So to all those software. But here now you see my iPad becomes is now an NDI source. And so now so now if I hit this and I say, okay, for NDI siphon, put that away, go to program 2, this is so now I have my NDI videos. So that's that. Then the same thing. So the same thing can be done with AirPlay. So if you need an AirPlay, you need to feed AirPlay video into your and your workflow. There is like the programs like Reflector, but there is one that's called Air Server that allows you to AirPlay devices into your Mac. But what Air Server has one huge feature, that it does support siphons. So if I hit this, so it's running. So if I go now on my iPad again, and I go to, let's see if I do Air Server, a screen mirror to my iMac. So this is now AirPlay playing. Put this aside, but now here it should recognize, if everything's fine, it should recognize my, Air Server's coming up here as an input device, as a camera. So now if I go to if I play this, so now and I can of course, increase the resolution of that. Can make it, So now I'm playing anything AirPlay. And then
one of the things that I find really interesting looking at all of this is, especially with the inputs, is the ability to extend your ATEM Mini. You know, so there's a lot of things that you know, you have an ATEM Mini. You don't, you know, you want to have some super sources. You want to have a picture-in-picture. You want to have a couple things that are there that you can't do with your ATEM Mini. I can see how QLab can let you, you know, put those together in a way that, you know, maybe it's not vMix or other things, but if you already have them, the advantage of doing this, by the way, especially with like super sources or quote unquote extras, is that if something goes wrong with your software, you still have your hardware. You're still cutting between things, and you're going there, and but you can add a lot of these extra little bits and pieces that are cool, but you still have kind of a mission critical hardware piece involved if there's any issues. Go ahead, Victor.
Well, and Lawrence already mentioned this, but we've talked often about the ability, oh, we wish we could bring our USB cameras into the ATEM. Well, this way you can't, because it doesn't matter what it is. You can bring any of those USB cameras right into your ATEM by using the method that he described.
Yeah, absolutely. Sky?
With regards to AirPlay versus, I was given the influence by this group that Bluetooth is a bad idea for communication. Is AirPlay a Wi-Fi system?
It is Wi-Fi. It is Wi-Fi, and
so,
you know, it's not going to be as you know, it's never going to be as stable, but you know, having it be something that's mission critical is something that I worry about. Having something as an added piece that you can cut away to. We've used AirPlay a lot in productions where we put an Apple TV right under the host's desk, so that the throw is almost zero, and then we run that out to. In studios, we'll run that to an Extron and convert it to SDI and send it out or whatever. And there's other tools now that are capable of doing that.
What distance and how many rooms away would you put?
Oh, I would never do it in another room. I would always have, you know, I would always do AirPlay in a single room to do for production.
Line of sight?
But I usually, you know, I usually try to keep it to less than 10 feet. And usually if I'm designing it and someone's seated, I'll do it at less than 3 feet. But it is nice to have something that someone can walk around in a room wireless and have it go. Will it work up to 30 feet? Probably. You know, 20 or 30 feet is probably something that it can do. I mean, I know that I throw my phone to my TV on a daily basis. My server room is behind my living room, so it's going through a wall. And I'm throwing it 20 feet to there. So I think that it works seamlessly. So I don't think it's, you know, that's.
And compared to NDI, is it apples to apples or not?
It's different. I would definitely use AirPlay over NDI, but I think that other people would have different opinions.
So all these things
you have, and the last thing you had was alpha channels.
Yeah, so that's another thing. So when you use, to use key and fill, you need 2 inputs on the ATEM Mini, which I cannot physically do with my iMac, but I have my laptop running the same thing. So basically, let's set this up. So basically what you do, I sent...
and this is where an Ultra Studio comes in useful, because it has 2 outputs. You know,
So I have here, this is to stay in the theater business. This is an animation. This is the alpha channel. So in my other MacBook, I send one through QLab, I said send to one screen on my input on my ATEM, the other one to my other one. And then if I loop this, which is happening right now, let's see if it's playing. What do I do? So I use on my key fill, I had a macros. Let's set it on the run. Why is it not changing my? Anyway, you can do it manually. So 3, my fill. So basically now this is my ATEM 3. That's my key. My fill is on ATEM 4. So I have to now set it that it shows my key like this, and now I can pre-multiply it, and if I put it on air, it's full transparency over.
And that's coming from 2 computers?
No, that's one computer. It's QLab. You can all do it from one computer. You know, QLab can send to as many outputs as necessary. So this now plays those 2 movies, and this is another.
And that's coming out of you just have 2 USB-C to HDMI converters.
No, this is a 20. What is it? This is an old Mac. This is a 2014 MacBook Pro, just using the 2 Thunderbolt to HDMI cables going into my ATEM. And you know, to give you,
I'm just surprised it's synced.
Yeah,
but
that's why I
Zenmar.
use it a different computer. It's an old computer. The other thing you can do it. I was planning to do it one file. So this is an ugly, it's just, but it's full transparency coming into the ATEM, and so I was surprised it worked too, because these are big files. But I was planning to make it in one file with the key with the fill on top and the key on the bottom, and make it one file. It's basically double the height. Put that into QLab and shift one up and shift the other one down. So at least it's running from the same file. It doesn't have to load it twice, but I don't need to do it. It seems
interesting.
So
great.
that's hopefully it made a little bit of sense. I felt that a little bit.
Can
No,
you do a single file with an alpha?
A couple more questions from Mukana. Hold on one second here. Let me get back to it. Tom Wineland asks, who in the industry is using QLab? I mean, I guess where I work, almost every presentation company has moved to QLab. I mean, there's a handful of people that have old Macs that still use Playback Pro, but all the technical folks that I've seen have moved to QLab, and these are the largest companies in the world. I mean, yeah, go ahead, Roscoe.
It's different tools for different people. QLab came out of the theater background, so there's another question about vMix and all the others. QLab is just a different sequencing tool that came from a theater.
It comes out of theater, but in events and in the event world and the theater world, it's kind of taken over a lot of those roles. In the TV realm, we don't see it very often. So in the web streaming stuff, I think that what Lawrence is showing us gets us interested in that process, and that's him taking his theater background and showing us how to do it in this area. In the broadcast, we don't see it as much. They use a variety of different tools to do that. But definitely in events and in theater, I mean, I just see it everywhere. Go ahead, Hosmuk.
Yeah, for my two shows, the cooking show and the language training show, I realized I need a lot of graphics overlays. And I got invited by Victor and Lawrence to their little tutorial. And Lawrence tried very hard to keep me at Keynote and not only use Keynote, but then I realized it's a lot of work. And this was easier than learning vMix or Ecamm or any other software. I just had to learn one software. And in fact, I had a meeting this morning with my Xhosa teacher, and we just wrote down all the words that he was going to use and throw it on the screen. And I've queued them all up in QLab. So as he goes along with a particular tutorial, I can just throw them all from QLab. So I plunged for the full video license, because that way I can throw it to another slate, which was to my ATEM. So I can use the Luma key to do that.
That's great. Yeah, amazing. Yeah, go ahead, Lawrence.
Yeah, so I don't want to convince anybody that QLab is the golden ticket.
You didn't have to, Lawrence.
This is the last question. So, the last question was Frank Henney said, "What's wrong with QLab? Like, what do you think are the issues with it? Are there any that are other than just it's designed to do what it's designed to do, right?
It's very easy to use. It's super stable. It has never crashed on me. I'm sure the next version will have even more bells and whistles. Maybe native NDI support, but again, I don't have a use for that. But I cannot think of something out of my head quickly.
Good, Roscoe.
It does push everything to one computer. In other words, there is one sequencing computer. A lot of times you want something on the side, sitting, doing the exact same thing at the exact same time, but it's not easy for that computer to suddenly take over. So you are, putting your eggs in one basket at that point for the sequencing.
And the thing that kept us away from it for a long time is it's actually because of a feature, not a bug, is that it can play more than one thing at a time. So for us, that was very scary, because you can accidentally cue something while you're still playing something into a broadcast, and mostly that you'll hear it in another audio. And we've had it happen in rehearsals, never had it happen but it scared us all the time. So that kept us away from QLab, because there was no mode where I could say, hey, I just want, and it's a little bit more complicated than Playback Pro. If you're coming from that world, Playback Pro was simple. You could teach anybody how to use it. QLab, you got to kind of walk them through it a fair bit more. And we'll do a walkthrough in the near future. Go ahead, Sky. And we're going to we're at the top of the hour, and Sky will be the last one. Sky and Victor, but real quick. 'cause I
Victor,
gotta
Victor.
go.
Yeah, redundancy, I guess, was my question. Can you clone a secondary system and then just?
Doesn't sound like you could do it instantly. Like you couldn't roll over. Go ahead, Lawrence.
Yeah.
No, we have always a backup, but you know, there's a physicality of switching cables to computers for projectors that will slow you down. Never happened before, knock on wood. There was one.
Now,
more
could that be
thing.
one of those things where you had a computer for, let's say, every projector, and they're being driven by a central control? So if you lost central control, you could switch over to another one and have it sending cues back out to those?
It could. In my case, it would become, you know, and I haven't touched any of that, is the masking and the projection mapping would become very difficult. If it's coming from, basically you make one surface that covers, and then you add projectors to the surface. So it's not every projector is a surface. You create a surface first, and then you say, this projector is covering that bit, and add a mask to that, and keystone it, and pin it. And, you know, it would be very complicated to do that with multiple projectors and multiple computers.
Go ahead, Victor, and then Roscoe, I'm going to close it out because I'm already late for my next meeting.
Just want to say I have found it to be a very easy learning curve, although I do have a wonderful teacher that Lawrence hits me on one-on-one, and he is a fantastic teacher. Thank you for doing this.
Anybody
Thank
can
you,
DM
Lawrence.
me on Discord. Any question you have, I'm there.
Thank
for
you, Lawrence. That's
Lawrence, you
mind-blowing.
did awesome.
You're welcome.
That was
Thank
that
you.
was
You were
amazing.
awesome.
Yeah, really, really well done. So it's already got me thinking about stuff I'm gonna have to call you about. So it's amazing work, and I'm really excited. And again, we've used it for very basic things. Really getting to see what it can do is amazing. So thank you, and thank you. Yeah, really, really well done. And will you come back and show us just QLab? Will you do an hour in QLab?
Absolutely, anytime. And everybody needs help, I'm happy to
You
do
say
one-on-ones.
anytime, but then I say, hey, Lawrence, let's do it tomorrow, and then you'll be like, what?
Yeah, next few weeks are kind of crazy, but we'll talk.
Yeah, we'll talk. All right. Thanks, everybody. It's great. We're back in our second hours, and it was a little overwhelming to get started again, but I'm excited. We've got a great week coming up. So anyway, we'll see you tomorrow, first thing in the morning. And yeah, have a great day. Nikki, can I have my control back? See, now I laugh with it. I can't help it. Anyway, so anyway, lots of great stuff coming up this week. Stay tuned every hour now. I mean, every day. The email will tell you what's happening that day. I've got it kind of into a system now. So anyway, so take care and check those emails. If you're not getting emails from us and you want to, if you're not getting them, you don't want to, then don't worry about it. But if you're not getting them and you want to, ping me on Discord because we're trying to figure out how many people are getting dropped off. All right. Thanks, everybody.